This would be the last of Friday, Rhino, before those zany legislators return to the Capitol next week.
Those guys.
I mean, I'm leaving.
we got a couple of them in the Element Well studio with us right now. We've got Jonathan McMillan, represents District 58, and also we've asked old Representative Fred Shanks to hang around. So we got two of the august members of the Mississippi House. I wonder if Speaker of the House Jason White's tuned in listening to you guys.
He's probably sweating it right now.
Yeah, Fred claims he was buying my lunch today, so I think that's why I got him to stick around a little bit. So there you go.
I love it. All right, Jonathan. So your first session last year, and it was an active one, to say the least.
We survived.
You survived.
I'm survived.
So now you're back.
You're
at
offered
it.
great leadership. That's what you know. There you go. That's it. No, yeah, we did. It was a busy one apparently.
You didn't get scolded by the rules chairman, Fred Shanks, here, do
I
you?
don't know if I ever had.
Yeah, we're not done with this interview just yet.
I don't know if I've ever had to go in your office. I never got called to the office.
Not
it was
yet.
good.
Not
yeah.
yet.
All right. So, have you guys been doing any planning in the between sessions here? You're getting back at it
Yeah, we
this coming
have.
Tuesday.
Yeah, I mean, I think the past probably month and a half, 2 months.
Yeah.
I mean, there's been several meetings. Just talking about it, kind of the direction we want to go, and I think the ideas have bbeen thrown out there to where we can collectively meet as a group and really talk about it and try to beat up some of the issues that we're going to be dealing with. And then of course I was on the the select committee for the revitalization of Jackson, so I was. Shonda Yates chaired that. Clay Mansell was vice chair of that. So I was, was busy with some of those meetings.
Okay.
Fall too.
Between the sessions in the off period, yeah. So I think there were lots of hearings and meetings, right, being conducted.
This is the busiest off season I've ever had.
Okay.
And it looks like this year is going to be the same. This year is going to be a big. I mean, Speaker White's 100 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And we're there to work, and he let us know that right when his introductory speech as Speaker.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And he hadn't backed off, but we kind of like that. We like getting things done and working on big issues and not shying away from things.
Yeah, and I wouldn't have it any other way. I mean, if I'm gonna take time, and I said this whenever I ran, if I'm gonna take time away from business, away from my family. I mean, to come in here and hang out with you today, I mean, we got to be doing something. We got to be moving the needle somehow, some way. So, I mean, I like to refer to the kick the can down the road politics. I'm not for that. Let's go in there and let's get something done. So.
Well, let's dig into it a little bit and talk about some of the specific items on the agenda. I'll start with an easy one, and that's the restoration of the citizen ballot initiative. You guys have passed legislation, you guys being the House, the last couple of sessions that went over to the Senate and just couldn't get out and couldn't get to the governor for signature.
Yeah, we had a lot of conversations with Representative Price Wallace, who chairs the Constitution Committee. This would be our fourth year to do it. This offseason, I've not really heard much about it. Just not much interest from the citizens or really anybody.
I get it on the text line.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's just maybe a bit of fatigue about it. I'm not sure. So we're still discussing it, and it's on the table.
You think we'll see a bill again?
Well, the House will be ready. I think we're kind of going to work with the Senate, kind of see where they're at. And I talked to Price a couple of days ago, and he would move. I mean, he's ready to work it out. If we can work something out.
All right.
So,
Jonathan, what about tax reform? I know that's something that's gotten a lot of attention since you guys passed fairly considerable reform in 2022.
Right.
Before you got there, of course, but. The governor has indicated his desire to completely, fully eliminate the income tax, but that seems to run into roadblocks, particularly in the Senate. I don't think the lieutenant governor's on board with that idea.
Yeah, I mean, you look around at obviously, the reform that we made, we're down to, I guess, 4% or phasing into the 4% rate.
Yeah.
But you look around at the competitive states around us. Look at what Louisiana's doing, Tennessee, Alabama. I mean, heck, you played sports, I played sports. I mean, we're in competition with these folks.
Yeah, no doubt.
So, I mean, in order, I think, to continue the momentum that we have going on in the state, I mean, that's something that has to be on the table, and we need to continue to work to try to bring that down. Now, I know what you said, the hesitancy maybe of the Senate, and I haven't had any discussion with those guys. But, I mean, the state is in a good financial position
Yeah.
right now with money, flush with money. And, I do understand and totally get the thought process behind, hey, let's just make sure we have some funds set up just in case. But at the end of the day, if we have money sitting there, I've got 4 kids, a wife, and 2 dogs. I would rather that money go back to the citizens of Mississippi and let those people do something with it than the government. And I think that in a sense actually makes us really dial in and let's really see what are the core functions of government, if that makes sense at all. What I'm saying.
Sure, I think it does. Well, of course, the other thing that comes up with respect to tax reform is doing something with the sales tax on groceries, either reducing that or fully eliminating that. And the lieutenant governor seems to be on board with that. Now, the governor said, there's not a tax decrease that he wouldn't sign. I may be paraphrasing a bit.
Yeah.
But, of course, his goal is to fully eliminate the income tax. He's made that very clear.
Yeah.
But
what do you think about that, the grocery sales tax?
I think, obviously, there again, I said with my 4 kids, wife, and 2 dogs, every time we go to the grocery store, it hurts. So, anything that we can do to lessen that burdens on families across the state, I'm all in, but there again, you do hear the conversation, and you do have some parts of the state, local municipalities and counties, they do depend on that grocery tax to make their cities whole, So I think whatever we do there, we'll have to come back with something else to try to kind of make up a little difference, a little ground there. So, and we've been in talks and conversations to try to figure that out, what that looks like.
Yeah.
So,
one thing you could continue that. I think it's 1.5 cents to the municipalities from the grocery tax, and work it out in another area. Yeah. So certainly, but I anticipate you will see a grocery tax cut of some form.
Sounds like that's something that could pass both chambers and get to the governor's desk. That's just my take on it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I could see that happening.
Yeah, but it would make it more difficult then to whittle away at the income tax because that would potentially represent a loss of revenue.
True. You could kind of play with the sales tax a little bit. We have a very low sales tax rate considering our surrounding area, states. So, those all those things are on the table right now.
Yeah. All right, so school choice, education reform, even education funding. I've seen reports that Representative Rob Robertson, who chairs the Education Committee, that he said something about perhaps tweaking the formula, which you guys did really big reform on that last year.
Yeah, that was almost a sleeper kind of policy. Yeah. It turned out to be a huge deal, and it worked out very well. Yeah. I think everybody was pretty happy with it to be such a transformational piece of policy. Yeah. So I think we're going to take a look at a couple little things, maybe tighten it up a little bit, and push on with it.
We have lots of folks that, as you know, I can't remember the number. I want to say it's maybe over 100 that are on the waiting list for the existing education savings account programs we have for students, special needs students and dyslexia students as well. And they're on this waiting list. They're stuck there because there's not enough money. It sounds like that both Representative Robertson, just from reports I've seen in the intersession period, and Senator DeBar, who chairs education in the Senate, support perhaps some additional funding for that. Yeah. You heard that as well? I think we may see some of that, but we got a new formula that I think was significant reform. What about a teacher pay raise? Senator DeBar says that he wants to look at perhaps increasing teacher pay. We just did that, 2 sessions ago?
Yeah, we did the largest one, I want to say in the Southeast, and it's the largest one in the state, I know, that we had ever done. We're certainly willing to take a look at it and just kind of see what he's got.
I think it goes back there to staying competitive. You look around at the other states, and I think when we passed that reform and increased the teacher pay, heck, a few months later, other states, boom, they're right up there. So we were top in the Southeast. Now I think that trickles back down. So which goes back to the point, we've got to stay in the game. We can't go to sleep. We've got to keep pushing the needle and keep moving forward, which kind of goes back to what we're supposed to be doing, I think, in the legislature.
We got a break right here. You guys can hang around. We'll keep talking. We got some other issues to discuss as well on the agenda. We're coming right back in the Element Well studio. It's Representatives Jonathan McMillan and Fred Shanks. We got Representatives Jonathan McMillan and Fred Shanks in the Element Well studio. So we were talking about education, and anytime we're talking about what's happening in the legislature, it obviously makes sense to talk about education since that consumes little more than half of our general fund budgets, where a lot of our money goes, and that's the case across the country in all 50 states. Education typically is the number one spending line item. The concept of school education freedom, let's put it that way, comes up quite a bit, and just at the highest level, what it really means is, in general, is that the money allotted to a student from the state, from the general fund, would be able to follow that student to the education setting of choice. That just, at a high level, I think just defines the concept of education freedom and what some refer to as school choice is another way to put it. We have a little bit of that right now in place. Students that have special needs, dyslexia, I think also children, if I'm not mistaken, of veterans and active military. They have some latitude in choosing where they want to go as well. So we have that in place right now, but extending that further to allow a student to go to a private school and use the state portion only, not the local portion, the state portion, to defray the cost of tuition, or perhaps homeschool is another idea as part of that. We had legislation to kind of phase into that all the way up to universal school choice, which means everybody has access to the state portion of their students' funding. They can go anywhere they want to with that money. That didn't go too far, honestly, but I think we're going to see some further discussion about it. What do you think, Jonathan?
Well, like I said, I mean, when you start talking school choice, I mean, that's really what we're talking about. I mean, and you look at our educational system that we have right now, we've made so many strides. I mean, you look at the governor, the lieutenant governor, you talk to superintendents. I mean, we have a new superintendent. I mean, our public school system, I dare to say, is about as strong as it maybe has ever been. I mean, if you look at from an accreditation standpoint to your A-level schools. So it's kind of like whenever you start look at that model that what we're doing, and then all of a sudden, wait a minute, y'all want to change that? And it's been working good? Why do you want to change anything? And then you look in my district in Madison County, and I'll say this, I think we have one of the number one school districts across the entire state.
Sure.
Except for Rankin County.
That's why I said that with you sitting here. I'm just going to say.
They both grade real high.
Yeah, so. I mean.
But we do need to remember, I mean, there are D and F schools in the state, and it's just, you have a problem there that it has to be addressed at some point.
Yeah.
And so I think people just need to understand what comes out. Or, there again, I hadn't seen a bill this year. I hadn't read a bill. There's no bill that I know of right now.
Yeah.
But whatever we sift through or whatever comes down the line, trust me, I want to protect my school district and my kids.
Yeah.
I mean, protect every kid. I don't care if a kid goes to public school, private school, homeschool, charter school. I want them to get the best education possible.
Yeah.
And in some parts of the state, I mean, you got some areas that may need some improvement there. So the bill that we had last year, I think it tried to address some of that as far as just from a portability aspect, to where if a kid is in a bad situation, he can make it easier for him to get out of that situation.
Yeah.
But now he would have to still have a place to go to school. So that's kind of what we're talking about doing is from just strictly a portability standpoint. That's what we were talking about last year.
Yeah.
It was not the state right now. We're not set up. We can't do universal school choice. I mean, we don't have the money for it. I mean, we're not set up to do that. So I think people, whenever we start kind of talking about this, everybody seems to be on guard, which they need to be, because I mean, this is our kids' future. I mean, they need to be. This is important. But let's just really get into look at what the actual language of a bill says and what we're actually trying to do before we start just.
What do you think, Chris? What do you think?
It's such a national topic too. I mean, Trump talks about it every time he's doing one of his rallies, that we need school choice. So we will certainly be having conversations about it. We already have. And maybe it's something you could look at just for the failing school districts, and seeing what we could do there, if anything.
Yeah, and the problem, as you guys know, is we've had grading inflation, so I'm not sure that the grades assigned to the schools and the districts reflect reality.
True.
And we can only place charter schools in D and F districts, and I think we're down to like 2 districts in the whole state. So, and that brings up another question that comes up quite a bit for you guys, is the idea, the notion of consolidating school districts. Even Representative Creekmore has said something about taking a hard look at that.
Yeah, it's been mentioned again, kind of like what Jonathan was saying earlier. I mean, there's no bill or anything, no language that we've seen, but the topics come up. Maybe it would be something, if that was to proceed, maybe it would be something to where it was, just in a county.
Okay.
Consolidated within that. Not
Octibaha is the one I use as an example.
Okay.
They just did that, Octibaha and Starkville, a few years ago.
Yeah, maybe looking at things like that, because it's admin heavy.
Yeah,
and that's not helping the student.
He, Representative Creekmore, actually Rob Robertson. I said Creekmore, and I meant Rob Robertson. That's my fault on that. Pardon me for that.
We'll take care of it.
I've got who chairs that committee.
Yeah, we like Sam.
Creekmore is got
Public Health.
Public Health.
Yeah.
So apologize for that. I'm conflating them. Rob Robertson, who's actually said that he wants to work with the Department of Education to see about consolidating school districts to reduce them down to 82 from the present, 140, I think.
Yeah. I mean, it's we need to have a conversation about it, if nothing else.
I think the other day we were talking in Houston, Texas.
Yeah.
Did that get brought up? I think the city of Houston, who has more people in Houston than the entire state of Mississippi, there's one superintendent.
Yes, and one assistant superintendent. That's right. Yeah,
for the whole city of Houston. So, and it functions and it works and it But there again, you go back to our educational model. I mean, you look at what we've been doing for so long. It's tough to get people to maybe look at it from a different angle, but that's what we need to do. That's what makes sense.
Yeah. It's taking a life of its own, and I think there are a lot of people in the state that believe that is a way to save money, that there could be some savings achieved by consolidating school districts. I'm glad to see that Representative Robertson is on board with really digging into that pretty deeply.
I think with nothing else, efficiency.
No doubt about it. Yeah. I mean, we have some districts, that are really small. I mean, they come in all different sizes. It always seemed to me like we ought to take the A graded districts and put them side by side with or schools even, and put them side by side with the F, and just go through, just profile them.
Yeah.
What is A doing that F's not, and vice versa, that maybe causes a disparity.
Absolutely. I mean, that A school has figured it out.
Yeah. Maybe we ought to replicate that. Yeah. Whatever that model is probably makes sense. Now, that doesn't account for just the community. You have lots of situations where you have broken homes and poverty and problems there. I think all that contributes to poor educational outcomes.
Sure.
That needs to be addressed. This is going to be a topic. You guys know that.
Yeah.
It's going to come up. Once again, I know Rob Robertson's been working a lot on this.
He has.
Outside of the session.
Yeah.
I mean, since the session ended, because there was so much talked about leading up to it, but leading up to the end of the session, and it's almost like it just got cut short. Mm-hmm. So, and then before we go, we got to ask you about health care, Medicaid expansion. That's going to be a hot topic once again. Representatives Sam Creekmore and Missy McGee, who were heavily involved in that last year. What do you think?
My take on it is, let's see what Trump does.
Yeah.
He's coming in on the 20th. Does that leave us enough time this session to do it? I don't know. I don't know what that looks like, but I don't think we should really touch anything until we kind of see what he does.
I have concerns about that too. I recorded a segment a couple of weeks ago where I went through some of my concerns about that, and the governor actually reposted it in his social media.
That's right.
I know you're aware of that.
We know where the governor is on it. We 100% know where he's at on it.
But my message was, I agree. We got to see what they're going to do before we go.
It's last year. I mean, obviously that was a contentious debate with that. But I mean, there again, like Fred said, I mean, we knew what the game was last year. Obviously, the game is going to change.
It's going to change.
So we got to figure out what the new game is and figure out where Mississippi needs to fall there to make sense from a business standpoint. Because I think last year that's what we were really looking at.
Oh,
this is a business decision.
Numbers.
This is what we're trying to do. So we need to see where the game is this year before we do anything.
I agree. So. Before we go, I just make this point. My concern is not so much about expansion. I mean, I have concerns about that, but how the funding may change for our Medicaid program right now.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there you go.
Absolutely.
We need to work on that first. Yeah.
All right. Representatives Jonathan McMillan and Fred Shanks have been our guests here in the Element Wealth studio on Middays. Thanks for coming in, guys.
Absolutely.
Always.
Thanks, sir. Yeah, it's a pleasure.
Coming right back. Stay